Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So welcome to Bhakti Sanga Japa newsletter interview. So this month being Kartik special. So today we have with us His Grace Arjun Sakha Prabhuji for giving his interview for us for Bhakti Sangha. And we are really very fortunate for Prabhuji's mercifully accepting the invitation and coming on the call and giving his valuable time and association for the interview. So before moving on to the interview, I would like to give brief introduction about Prabhuji. His Grace Arjun Sakha Prabhuji is a disciple of His Holiness Radha Govinda Dasa Goswami Maharaj, who is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, very well known for his classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Academically, Arjun Sakha Prabhuji holds a master's in information systems from New Jersey and spiritually holds a Bhakti Shastri degree from ISKCON Chowpatty, Mumbai. He has been actively preaching in many ISKCON centers across the world and has been inspiring and helping the youth to go deeper in their chanting and hearing of Krishna Katha at ISKCON Seattle. In his childhood, he was fortunate enough to get immense personal association of Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's dear scientist disciple who sowed the seed for his Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, once again for giving us your valuable time and association. So, Prabhuji, I just would like to know your journey, how you have stepped into this Krishna consciousness. Yeah, we know that you are brought up well in a family of devotees. So, and you have a good association of devotees also. So, how was your journey in this Krishna consciousness, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna Mataji and Hare Krishna to all the devotees. Please accept my most humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. And thank you for considering me to have this interview, even though I'm not very qualified. As far as my spiritual journey is concerned, somehow Krishna was very kind. As they say that whatever you have done in your past life, it just continues and it fructifies. All the material assets are left behind, but spirituality is something that you can carry forward, as Krishna explains. And I feel that is something that has happened in my life. I was 1.5 or 2 when my parents joined the Krishna conscious movement. We were living in Saudi Arabia. My father was working there in Riyadh, and in 1996, July or 97, my grandmother passed away. So my father didn't want to leave his father, that is my grandfather, alone. So we just packed up and we came to India, and my father had some Pakistani colleagues with whom he would work there, and they would speak about Islam and so many other things, and my father was completely clueless about the Bhagavad Gita. It's a, it's a typical Indian thing. If you ask an Indian, what do you know about Gita, and they will say, "Karm karte jao, phal ki chinta mat karo." That's the only what they know about. But apart from that, they do not have much idea. So it was pretty similar, and my father wanted to get some idea, being an Indian, have some idea of what Bhagavad Gita is and what Bhakti is. And eventually, the journey began there, 1997, going to different institutions, Chinmay Mission, and so many others that were prominent, that are still prominent. And somehow ISKCON was not uh, in the list. I would put it this way: ISKCON was probably last in the list because we had the preconceived notion that if Americans are there, what can they teach us? Like, we are born in India, we know more than them. That preconceived notion. So, ye hame kya batayenge? And eventually, we went to different places, and somehow my father, being a little curious and scientific in nature, he would have different questions, and somehow they never got answered. And eventually, we came to ISKCON Juhu, Mumbai temple, and that's when they would have the Sunday afternoon classes. So we would go there, even though we were small. Every Sunday we would go. My mother would have migraine attacks, and she would puke during the way. We were small, but my father was a little strong on the point that, like, we have to go throughout the week. We give it up for ourselves. Why not just give one day for Krishna? And that's where we would get so many speakers who are qualified, having PhD and MBBS and so many others. And eventually, seeing the degree that they had, it kind of put the seed in our head that, well, ISKCON is not just an institution where you have speakers, but you have qualified speakers who are academically very erudite. We have Gauranga Prabhu, IIT, Radheshyam Prabhu, IIT, and so many qualified speakers. And that kind of connected us to Bhakti Prabhu Damodar Maharaj, who was Prabhupada's scientist disciple. Because in the 1970s, he had a PhD from Irvine, California, which is even now ranked very, very high in the US, the Irvine, California campus. So in 1970s, he had a PhD in being intellectual. My parents being a little intellectual got connected to him, and that's pretty much how it started. So they did the hard work, and I reaped the benefit of getting into Krishna consciousness.
So very nice, Prabhuji. So they sow the seed, and you are carrying it all along the way. So delivering all this Krishna Katha to all the devotees all over the world. So Prabhuji, you are preaching to the youth, right? So what are the difficulties you find in preaching the youth? How they take your preaching?
I feel that is probably the most challenging environment to preach to, um, because the youth are unlike the adults. If you're speaking to a 35, 40-year-old adult, he has gone through experiences in life. He has had the setbacks in life. So it's easier for him to resonate to the teachings of Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna is saying, well, there's going to be obstacles, Maya is going to be there, and so on and so forth. Daivihesha gunamai mama Maya duratya. Then problems are going to be there. For a 40-year-old, it's easier to resonate because he has gone through the challenges, he has gone through the setbacks. Probably he has a family, he has children, he has been laid off from work. There have been so many challenges that he has faced. So he knows the ups and downs of human existence. But for a youth, up until that time, they've only experienced happiness. They don't have to work. The money inflow is there from parents. They have to just study. And even if the grades kind of go down, it's not a big thing. Till the time they're going to pass that grade, it's not a big thing. So they don't have much pressure and much stress about anything in life. So it's very difficult for them to resonate when Krishna says, Dukhalaya Mashashvatam, the existence is filled with misery. The common question they come up and ask is, well, for me everything's happy. Maybe for someone else it's sad state. Maybe someone else is distressed. Maybe someone else is in misery. But for me, everything is fine. I have the right friends. I have the right school. My parents have all the money. I have a Tesla car. My father is working for Google and Microsoft. Well, I have a big mansion in New York City. For me, everything is perfect. I don't have any problem. So you keep the dukhalem to yourself. And there are youth who speak that way also. Even when the parents are probably initiated, you have those kind of youth also who are not much interested. Um, so it's definitely very challenging. Um, I remember when I came to Seattle in 2019, up until that time, I had not preached. I was 23 at that time. And for my work, after 2 years of my master's, I flew from New Jersey to Seattle, one end of America to another end of America. And by the way, America is huge. So if you go from east to west, a direct flight is like 6 hours. I always kind of joke around by saying you catch a direct flight from Mumbai to go to Dubai or to go to Abu Dhabi is like only 2.5 hours, or max to max 3 hours. But you double that, and that's one end of America to another end. So I somehow Krishna picked me up from one end of the US and put me to another end. And I came here to Seattle. I had not heard anything about Seattle. I just knew that Seattle is known for the Space Needle. Like you have Burj Khalifa, like that Seattle is known for Space Needle, which is a tourist attraction. That's the only thing I knew. But when I came here, Krishna was kind that I got introduced at the temple. I got a place to stay close to the temple. And in 2019, summer of 2019, Radhika Raman Prabhu's mother visited here along with Gopal Hari Prabhu, Arudha Mataji and Gopal Hari Prabhu. They visited here and they did a seminar. And it was pretty much a parent-oriented seminar, like parental, how they can train their kids, etc. And eventually, at the end, most parents put their hand up and said, "Well, all this makes sense, but our kids are not chanting. They are not coming to temple. When they were small, we had to literally request them to come home, and now it's the other way. We have to request them to go to the temple. So, what are the practical steps we can do to make sure that they are chanting or they are devotional?" And that's where I saw an opportunity, I saw a gap that maybe that's somewhere I can contribute to, because a youth can connect. I always say this, a youth can connect to a youth like no one else. Because with the parents, the kids always say it's generation gap. You are from 1970s, this is 2023, this is generation gap. You studied in India, this is America, there's a generation gap. But with me, it didn't work because I also studied in America, and there's not much generation gap. Like the age is pretty similar. So that's where the journey began, speaking to the youth. And fast forward now 4 years, we have done a lot of Sunday classes. We have morning japa for the youth. We have done festival dramas. We have done a lot of camps. We have done outdoor camps. All the youth pretty much here in Seattle are chanting 16 rounds. One girl last year got initiated. Couple of them are now aspiring, who are there in the list to take Diksha. Apart from this, I also lead a couple of temples now. I lead Chicago, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Seattle. So four temples. And Radhesham Prabhu and I, we collaborate together. He being the GDO for Western Outreach in North America. He and I work together to make sure Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings are spread far and wide in North America, primarily against the youth. So challenges are definitely there. There are ups and downs. Constantly, they need engagement. Many times, I know I have to have sleepless nights talking to them because. So, just for an example, last year there were a couple of youths who were graduating from high school and they were going to their college, which means from 12th grade to their engineering. And many of them didn't get in the university that they're looking out for. So University of Washington here is ranked top five in America. And it's very difficult to get. The percentage of admissions or admits is only probably 3 or 4%. And many of the youth didn't get. And naturally, they were distressed. The results came nighttime, 10:30 at night. They were crying. And more than speaking to their parents, many of them called me. And now this is something that I've left back 10, 12 years back. I've already graduated. Now I'm working. But now I had to again kind of step into their shoes and try to pacify them, which I feel is a part of preaching. Like preaching is not just something wherein you give a class and then you end it. But that relation with the youth is very, very important. If you can create that rapport with the youth, have that connect, have that friendship with the youth, then 99 out of 100 times they're going to come back to you. And because they see that there's someone whom they can cling on to, like an older brother, if there is something in their life, whether it's academics or whatever it is, peer pressure, rather than saying it to their parents, they can cling on to someone. And that faith that there is someone for me. And I feel this is very important for devotees, even for adults. Um, Spirituality is there, Krishna consciousness is there, Katha is there, Kirtan is there. But as devotees, we need those relationships to where we can kind of cling around and we can speak our heart out. Upadeshamrit Rupa Goswami also says that we should have friendships where we can open our mind. And sadly, the ground reality is many of us do not have that. We meet on Sunday feasts or we meet during festivals, but we are not completely free to open our hearts. All the problems that we have with all the devotees around, we kind of filter. So with the youth also, I just feel the major challenge is not even preaching. The major challenge is to create a rapport with them so that they can understand and they can connect with you. And once that is done, I feel 50, 60% of the job is done. Once that connect is there, then whatever you present to them, they're going to accept because now you are ready to sit and talk to them, even if it's 11 at night. So that has been challenges. There have been multiple sleepless nights with speaking to the youth, understanding their concerns, and providing some solutions from experience, having studied in the US and having studied in India. So it's definitely purifying, but at the same time, it's also fruitful to see the youth who are not chanting the past are now chanting 16 round and have a desire of going deeper in Krishna consciousness and have a desire of accepting a spiritual master. So it's completely fruitful.
Okay, so it's very inspiring to hear, Prabhuji. Very nice to hear about the youth preaching which you are doing. So, Prabhuji, youths actually, there are devotees, devotee parents, they have their children, they want the children to come into Krishna consciousness, but they come to a certain extent, but we see few youths, they go away from Krishna consciousness. So what can be done to them, or it's like how they, when they will revive that Krishna consciousness? Is it possible for them to revive it, or they will stay like that?
कृष्ण भूली जीव से अनादि बहिमुख अतएव संसार दिए अतएव मायातार दिया संसार दुख. Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that the only reason we are unhappy is because we have turned our face away from Krishna. And till the time the face is turned away from Krishna, the living entity will always be unhappy. How much ever money we have in the bank account, that is not going to give happiness and pleasure to the heart. The greatest of the greatest personalities who have a lot of fame, lot of money, are still distressed and are still miserable. You have Jim Carrey, who's the biggest Hollywood actor, and in one of the interviews, he was saying that I want everyone to become rich and famous so that they know that that is not the answer to life. Mhm. Recently, I was seeing some youth forwarded to me, Virat Kohli. He, in one interview, was saying that I have all the fame and all the money, but there are days where I am really unhappy and I have no idea what to do. So we are talking about the greatest personalities who have all the wealth that we aspire for, all the fame that we aspire for, but they are still unhappy and still miserable. And this is something that everyone has to understand, including the adults and including the youth, that how much ever material assets we have, it is not going to give us happiness till the time we turn our face towards Krishna. A child who is separated from his parents in a mela, in India you have melas. If a child is separated from the parent, you give all the chocolates, all the toys to the child. The child is going to be momentarily happy, but is still again going to cry till the time the child is not united back with the parents who can provide everything. The child is not going to be happy. Similarly, every youth who has turned their face away from Krishna have to understand that the only means of happiness is to turn their face towards Krishna. Now, if they're born to devotee parents and they were inspired in the past, but now they're not coming to the temple, or whatever the case is, there is definitely hope for everyone. Every sinner has a past, and everyone has a future. But the point here to be realized and understood is the only way we can come back or only way we can be inspired is if we have a role model. If someone wants to be a cricketer, they have a role model, whether it's Sachin Tendulkar or someone. If someone wants to be a tennis player, the youth have a role model, Roger Federer or someone. If someone wants to go into any field for that matter, we all have a role model. Seeing that role model, we get inspired. And then we want to achieve what they have achieved and we have the desire of surpassing and going more than the records that they have. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness also, we need role models. And a youth is going to get attracted to another youth. Seldom do we find a youth getting attracted to a 60-year-old. It is possible, but you don't find much cases about that. The youth naturally gets connected to another youth because the age is same, the thought process is same, the wavelength is same. They can resonate to those ideas. The environment is same. It's easier for them to connect to. So if they can find that spark, if they can find a role model with whom they can connect, someone who's of their age, who has gone through the same process of studying in the US, has gone through the same process of challenges of getting into universities, has gone through the same process of finding jobs, etc., and is still doing the path of Krishna consciousness, there is something to get attracted to. In our moment at this point, at least here in North America, we find, and I think other parts of India also, that a lot of stress is uh, placed on kirtan, which is the Yuga Dharma. But at the same time, kirtan is the Yuga Dharma, but if there is no hearing of Krishna Katha, our kirtan is not going to go much far ahead. If the kirtan is only there for a musical purpose, but if there is no hearing, hearing is the fuel to our kirtana. We may have a Mercedes car, but if there's no fuel in that, what's the use of a Mercedes car? Likewise, if we are not hearing as youth, if we are not hearing Krishna Katha, if we just pick up our mridangas and we pick up our bags and leave the temple hall when Katha is going on, then our kirtan is not going to go much far ahead. And Sripad Ayendra Prabhu would say this multiple times. If you're not hearing Katha, there's no use of doing Kirtan. It will have some benefit, but it will not have the ultimate benefit that Katha, Krishna Katha will give. So it is of paramount importance for the youth to have a role model. Very, very important, to whom they can connect and to whom they can speak their heart out to. Oftentimes, the youth are not interested or not coming to the temple. It's not because they don't have faith. It's because there are so many questions unanswered. And those unanswered questions are blockers. When I speak to the youth here in America, it's not that they do not have faith. They have faith that Krishna is existing. They have faith that deities are there. They have faith that holy name is there. But there are so many questions in their head which are detrimental or acting as blockers. For example, um, why is it wrong to have relationships? An 18-year-old will have this common question. Why is it wrong to have a relationship before marriage? Why is it wrong to go to the movie theater and watch movies? And so on and so forth. In America, practically with the youth, everything goes on. I have had youth who have written to me and who have personally asked that, well, smoking cigarettes is wrong. What about e-cigarettes? Well, e-cigarettes, uh, in America, you have e-cigarettes, which technically does not have tobacco, but it gives you the same uh, flavor and the same experience as that of a cigarette. Now, 16, 17-year-olds will come up and ask the question, why not we have e-cigarettes? What is wrong? Prabhupada said no to cigarettes, but what e-cigarettes? So it's a big time challenge answering these questions. And I remember here in Seattle also, I've experienced the weirdest of weird questions. And when I fly to India, in India also the youth are pretty much no less. 18, 19-year-olds, especially the boys, will come up with the most challenging, weirdest questions. And once those questions are answered based on Shastra, then faith builds. Now, because these questions are not being answered, there's a of uh, cloud coming. There's haze, there's fog in the heart. And now when this is taken off, when the Shastra Chakshu light pierces inside and this fog is taken off, now faith is rebuilt. Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karvai Udoy. Udoy means it's there, but now it rises. How does it rise? By hearing. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta. By hearing, Chitta becomes Shuddha and then it becomes Udoy. It again rises. So everyone is Krishna conscious. Everyone belongs to Krishna. But these blockers need to be cleared. And these blockers can be cleared only when they can ask questions. And they will only ask questions to whom they can connect to. And practically, that's another youth. I have had youth who come up and tell me that, well, in the temple hall, we feel very intimidated to ask these questions because the webcams are there and the speakers who come are very, very popular. So we feel that what will they think? Are itna bhi nahi pata. So we keep the questions to ourselves only so that we are not judged. There are webcams, there are big, big speakers. But when I do programs, or there are some youth preachers also in America, when they do programs, we keep it indoors with no webcams, with no cameras, and no adults. And then you should see the questions that come. Now there are no cameras, there are no adults, and it's just the youth. Now the most challenging type of questions will come up. In America, drugs is very popular. We have there are so many cases in Washington itself where 15, 16-year-olds have been caught with drugs, illicit relations. In the school, there will be illicit relations. There will be youth who are 14 and 15 and the girl will be pregnant. It's one of the most challenging places to be in and to preach. And that is what makes Prabhupada extremely great. He came to the most difficult place to preach and made the hippies into happies. So India is also catching up. And I think every country is catching up. The youth are following the Western world and primarily the United States. Um, but Krishna consciousness is like that medicine that can save. But the questions can be the most challenging, as mentioned.
Yeah, certainly, Prabhuji. So drugs, when Prabhupada came, he faced so many challenges. So no one knew about Krishna at that time. So that time he gave the higher taste, which is the Krishna consciousness. Because the youth then they were very much addicted to this drugs, the LSV, right? So that time, so then Prabhupada told, this is the most uh, addicted drug which you can take, which is Krishna consciousness. So that's how he showed the path. So certainly it's very powerful, Prabhuji. Thank you so much actually for taking this endeavor to make these youths to come into Krishna consciousness. So when you preach to the youth, you're saying about the Shastras, right? So it's not that every youth will take that Shastras, right? So for devotee parents, their children, okay, maybe they will be having some knowledge about the Shastras so that they can understand. But what about the non-devotee children where they don't have any open book about the Shastras? So they say that all these things are only fiction, right? So when we say to the youth, about Krishna, the creation of the world. So he is a supreme. They say no, nothing is like that. Everyone is the same, and it's just only a fiction which you are saying. So whatever is written is only fiction. So have you faced about means like these questions, and what would have been your answer to that?
Right. So we do preaching here at the University of Washington, and that's primarily for the youth who are not devotees. The parents are not devotees, they're also not devotees. They have bits and pieces they have heard, but are not chanting, are into meat eating, are into alcohol, like those kind, absolute newcomers. So when we preach to them, we don't speak Shastra because as you rightly mentioned, for the devotee kids, they have little faith in Shastra. But if the person has no faith in Shastra, then how much ever you may even quote the biggest of the biggest scriptures, but if there is no faith, the youth are not going to take. So what we do is we really get into the basics. We don't even jump into Bhagavad Gita first, not Bhagavatam, not Chaitanya Charitamrita, nothing. We just get into the basics. We speak about, like for example, the four basic miseries of human existence. Uh, what is the definition of a problem? What is the definition of a misery? Now, for someone, misery may be not having a job. For someone, misery may be not having a child. For someone, misery may be not having a spouse. For someone, misery may be something else. For every person, the definition of misery or a problem is different. But what is the general definition of problem? Problem is something that holds true for everyone, irrespective of one is animal or whether one is a human being. Something that holds true for all species, regardless of whoever you are, Indian, American, male, female, small child, middle-aged, old, animal, two-legged animal, three-legged animal, four-legged animal, whoever you are. It should hold true for everyone. That's the definition of problem that the Shastra explains. So on that basis, we see if that is the category of problems which is holding true for everyone, then there are only four problems. That is birth, death, old age, and disease, which is true for everyone. And this is something that no one can refute. It's a problem for everyone. Now you will have subset of these problems. This is the bigger problem. Then you will have a subset. What is the subset? You have problems caused by the body and mind, problems caused by others, and then problem caused by natural disasters, which is nothing but Adi Daivik, Adi Adhyatmik, Adi Daivik, and Adi Bhautik, etc. Hmm? By the mind and body, by others, and by natural calamities. So we will not use Sanskrit terms. We will just use this. And we try to keep it a little interactive where they can also do the thinking and they will come up with answers. Then we will speak about the law of karma, how karma works, how there are two types of karma. One is an instant karma, one is a delayed karma. Instant karma, for example, is if I slap someone, he will slap me. That's instant karma. Delayed karma is, for example, we give the example of Dhritarashtra Maharaj. Now it's a story, but we give an example of Dhritarashtra Maharaj. If the audience is Indian, we will say Dhritarashtra Maharaj. If the audience is American, we will say once upon a time there was a king. Now, if you say in Dhritarashtra Maharaj's case, he was blind, he couldn't see. But why was he blind? Because 100 lifetimes in the past, he had a habit of taking a blade of grass and pricking the eye of the ants. Now that was delayed karma. It took 100 lifetimes to get it back. Two examples of karma, how karma works. So like this, we go into small details. And then what's the solution? How go into solution as to, for example, how science gives only stopgap solutions. How science gives patchwork. It's not a permanent solution. For example, if someone is old, what's the solution that science has? Facelift, some creams. If you're in India, Fair and Lovely, you have these things, right? But it's not permanent. It's just stopgap. And these are some things that the youth cannot refute. Yes, science is great. Science is advancing. We as spiritualists, we are not denying science. In fact, we also use science. We are talking right with each other because of internet, because of laptop, and all glories to science. So we are, as Prabhu, as followers of Prabhupada and followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are not against science. We are not against technology, which is great. We need that advancement also. But at the same time, these basic four problems that are there, science cannot rectify that. You cannot create babies just through science. There's nothing they can do about death. There's nothing they can do about disease, and of course, they can do nothing about old age. You may have dentures, you can put a pacemaker, but how long? And then from from a point of pacemaker. So pacemaker generally, if someone's heart is not functioning, you put a pacemaker, and that's like an artificial form of the heart beating. And then we just ask them the question that your science has made a pacemaker, and that pacemaker works for about 1.5 to 2 years, and then again it needs to be replaced, and then you put another pacemaker. So if your scientist has made a pacemaker which works for 2 years, think about that scientist who has given you a heart which works for 80 years without any replacement. It works straight. So isn't he smarter? Isn't he the best scientist? And they will say, well, yeah, makes sense. And it's absolutely true. The heart that Krishna is giving, we don't do anything. Absolutely, we don't do anything. And it works for 70, 80 years straight. And a pacemaker with all the best advancement works for 1.5, 2 years. How is it that the sun rises on time? How is it that the sun sets on time? Who is the personality who's orchestrating everything? In our day-to-day life, you have a phone, and a phone does not operate without an operator. A simple, small phone like this needs an operator. How can we take it into consideration that the whole world, where you have the sun, you have the planets, you have the moon, everything is working, and there's no one taking care of it? And not to speak from a standpoint of science, oftentimes the youth are too much into science and they bring Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, etc. Now it's a very basic question to them. If we see the gravitational force of this earth, it's 9.8 meter per second square. Now this is pure science. For those who want science, it's 9.8 meter per second square. How is it that the gravity is kept perfect 9.8? If it becomes 9.7 or 9.6, it is explained that the earth would collapse. If it goes down even less. And if it goes little more than 9.8, then the earth planet will be exploded. How is it that it is correct to 9.8 meter per second square? Who was that personality who was orchestrating everything? You throw a ball in the air, the ball comes down, and the earth planet is just floating. There's no one holding the earth planet. Of course, we know it is Ananta Shesh who's holding the earth planet, but not for the youth who are attending. So how is it that you put a ball, the ball comes down, but earth planet and all the planets and so many universes are just as it is and they're floating? There has to be an intelligent creator. There has to be an intelligent designer who's orchestrating all this. So we don't bring Shastra directly. We take use of very basic fundamentals. And then slowly we get to the point of how Krishna consciousness or primarily chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is that process by which old age, disease, death, birth, etc. can be eradicated permanently. It's not a stopgap, it's not a patchwork, it's not like the creams, but it's once and for all you eradicate, where you go back to the intelligent scientist, to the most intelligent creator from where you belong. So eventually, after 10, 12, 13 sessions, where you started from groundwork, faith develops in the heart. They come, hear a little kirtan, they are having prasadam. Now, for 13, 14, 15 weeks, if you keep doing this, the heart softens. And now, when you present Shastra, now they are not argumentative. But if you do that right at the start, it's not going to work. So we start very basic, and slowly we gradually increase to the point where they chant. So at this point, when we are doing at University of Washington, we have about 16 to 17 youth who join us regularly, who are not devotees, but are very inquisitive and very curious, and are regularly joining, regularly hearing classes, having questions. Recently, we spoke about Jalaja Navalakshani, how there are different 8.4 million species. And in that, someone asked the question that, well, if someone is demoted from a human species, someone becomes a tree. So how will they again become a human being? What's the system that the Supreme Lord has arranged? If from a human being, if someone becomes an animal or a tree, how can they again get promoted to a human species? So small questions like this have now started coming in the head, which means the mind is now becoming curious, which means the mind is now asking questions that Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire. What is the purpose of human life? Why am I existing? Is it just to make dollars in America, or is there something more to it? So it starts gradually and slowly after 10, 12, 13 weeks, when this is constantly put in their head, now the mind starts working, and it works for everyone. Preaching is an art. There is a way of presenting it.
Very, very nice, Prabhuji. I was just thinking it's like a medical treatment, like how to.
Mm.
how to change the mind of the youth. It's certainly very wonderful service, Prabhuji, which you are doing. I think it's time for you to go to various parts of the countries also for the youth to preach and for them to get the knowledge of this Krishna consciousness. So certainly, I think we need you here in UAE also for making this. Endeavor of getting the youths into Krishna consciousness. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for that. Prabhuji, how do you read the Shastras, Prabhuji, and how you manage your time from morning to evening? Like how you read the Shastras and how you perform your sadhana also so consistently?
So basically, I mean, I have an IT job, which is nothing but a 9 to 5 job. The good thing is I don't have to go to office. It's work from home. I take that as an advantage. Um, the sadhana begins from morning. We have morning japa calls here in the temple. It starts at morning 4 o'clock. So most devotees are up by 3:45, and now it's Kartik, so some devotees are up even earlier, have bigger sankhya's, bigger numbers to chant. But the day starts pretty much at 4 o'clock. 5:30 we have Mangalarti here in the temple, um, which goes on till about 6:15, 6:30, etc. The day after that starts at 9 o'clock with my work. Personally speaking, I'm not much of a reader. I prefer to listen to classes more, and that's something which is easier for me to connect. Having said that, I've gone through the books of Prabhupada, I have read them once. I remember I asked Sripad Mukundatta Prabhu, who's the head pujari of Krishna Balaram Mandir. I asked him that I am not a reader as such. So is it okay if I just hear classes? I have Guru Maharaj's classes, I have Prabhupada's classes. Can I just keep hearing? He said that is good. It is good to hear it. Shravanam is great. But as a matter of gratitude to Prabhupada, who had sleepless nights to write these books, at least every sadhaka should read the books of Prabhupada once in their life. Of course, if you are a reader, if you're a voracious reader, you can read them multiple times. But if you are not a reader, at least once in your life. So that is something I try to follow. But personally, I'm more into hearing. So 9 to 5 is the work schedule. Um, but sometimes a day, even at 8 o'clock, there may be a Bhakti Sanga class. So that may be from 8 to 9:15, 9:30 with Q&A. And then right after that, many times you may see I'll not take questions. I have to jump into a meeting right away. So I just finish the class and immediately I switch. From a spiritual standpoint, we have to switch completely to a material plane altogether. But what to do? That's pretty much how it is for I think most devotees around the world. Then, yeah, once the work is done, or even while the work is going on, if there is time, there'll be some Kirtan of Aindra Prabhu going on, just to make sure the mind is at the right place. And I think the advantage of being at home is you can, on your speakers, you can just blast as loud as possible. There's no one who's going to say anything. Unlike probably in a workplace where rules are more stringent, one type of Veda base will be open. So if there's something, I can just kind of one word or something like that. If I hear I had this habit if I'm hearing a class and if the verse is new and I've not heard it. So I'll just pause. I'll just hear the first word of that verse and then I'll go to Google and I'll put that word and I'll see what the verse is. And then I'll maybe take a screenshot of that. And in my phone, I have a folder of slokas. So if I mean for those who have an iPhone, you have the option. I think Android phones also have. You can create a folder and in that folder it will be just shlokas. So any new shloka I see, I will put it there. So whenever I have time or I'm in a flight journey from US to India, US to Abu Dhabi or whatever it is, that train flight journey that is there. So in that 10, 12 hours, I will go through verses so that I can buy out verses and then I can go to 10 classes. Um, in the evening, of course, good thing is I'm staying close to the temple. So I go to the temple to collect prasad because our temple here has 24 hours prasad. So in the evening I go there. There'll be some kirtan, some shayan arti. There was a time, of course, now it has stopped because of constant travel. But 9 o'clock at night, this time we would do book reading. So we would have devotees from around the world who would join for book reading. We were doing Krishna book. Um, that is there. And apart from that, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays there will be travel to different cities. So earlier In the summer, I was in India, traveling to Bangalore, to Varanasi, to Prayag, to Pune, to Mumbai, to Vrindavan, etc. And then while going back to America, I stopped at UAE. I did programs there. After I came here, within 10 days, I went to Chicago. After that, I went to New Jersey. Then I went to Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. Then I did programs here in Seattle Temple for Vijayadashami. Um, Now, hopefully, Radharani willing, for Bhishma Panchak, I'll be in Braj for 10-15 days. And then I come back immediately. I go to Excess for New Year. So that's pretty much how the sadhana is. Primarily, it's preaching again to the youth, to the adult, and trying to manage sadhana. My hearing pattern is a little different. I end up hearing classes pretty late at night. 10:15, 10:30, 11 o'clock is when I start hearing, because living with bachelors, living with roommates, the house is kind of noisy at times and everyone is working. So nighttime is the time when it's quiet. That's when I can probably concentrate when I'm hearing a class. So while hearing with my phone, I just keep making notes. Um, yeah, that's pretty much how it is. So by the time I'm go to bed, it is 11:15, 11:30, and then again the cycle starts next day.
Mhm. Very nice, Roji. So, like, I think you are like Narada, going here and there and giving this Krishna Katha to everyone. So,
The
yeah,
only difference is I don't have a danda. He's a sannyasi.
of course. So, Prabhuji, who is your inspiration, Prabhuji, in your bhakti, in your devotion process? Who is your inspiration, will you say?
uh, there are a couple of inspirations, but if I have to pick a name right away, without a doubt, that has to be Sripad Aindra Prabhu.
Mm.
Uh, when we were small, we had the association of Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, because parents are disciples of Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. So we would meet with him, we would interact with him. The good old days where we would even eat from his plate, we would massage his feet, we would remove his socks. We could just speak to him, and he was very very gentle, very very kind, very soft hearted. So I think that was a big boost, and the blessings and kripa, sadhu kripa of Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj was very very um, substantial on the path of Krishna consciousness. I think for both brothers. And then when 2006, on the day of Vijayadashmi, Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj left this world. In fact, his departure is also so beautiful. It was night time of Vijayadashmi, and he was in his room taking rest because he had just had a fracture. So he was taking rest, and then he got up and he went to another room, and his two brahmachari servants were sleeping because it was 10:30 at night. So Maharaj took a stick and he just gently hit them on their head and said, uh, "Get up, sleeping souls! Rasalila is about to begin." And then Maharaj went back to his room, and that's it. He left this world on the night of Vijayadashami. So 10:48 is when the Rasa dance begins of Radha and Krishna, and that's when Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj left this world. So having his association was very, very, very substantial, very prominent in our lives. In fact, Gaur Govinda Maharaj had mentioned, if you open the heart of Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, you will not even find one speck of dust. Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj had mentioned. So it's a big statement coming from Gaur Govinda Maharaj. It's a very, very big statement. So he was our first inspiration. Then after he left this world in 2006, next 2-3 years, the inspiration kind of went down because there was no one to hold or to cling on to. And then was the time when Indra Prabhu stepped in my life. In fact, I don't have the saubhagya of seeing him or meeting him or talking to him. The day I got to know about him was the day when there was an article published in Dandavats. I still remember the article. It read, "World famous Kirtan leader Aindra Das leaves his body in the land of Sri Vrindavan Dham." That's how the article started. And I had no idea who Aindra Prabhu was. I didn't know anything about 24-hour Kirtan. We would not go to Vrindavan. Probably we had been to Vrindavan only once or twice. We would go often to Mayapur because we were told that in Vrindavan, if you commit offenses, it's going to be hundred thousands of times more. But in Mayapur, it's Audare, Mahaprabhu is merciful. So in fear, we would not go to Vrindavan, we would go to Mayapur. Even though Vrindavan is closer to Mumbai, we would still take a 2-day train journey to Calcutta and go 3 hours to Mayapur. But we will not never go to Vrindavan out of fear. But when Ayendra Prabhu left this world, I, I remember I just told my parents that even if we make mistakes, I don't care. Even if we have to take lifetimes, I don't care. But I want to go to this place not to see Radha Shama Sundar, not because Krishna is there, not because it is Radharani's home, but only to see the room in which Ayendra Prabhu did bhajan for 25 years. So he left in the July of 2010, and then next 10 months, I was hearing his kirtans. I was hearing about him from different personalities. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much how the inspiration started. Somehow, in fact, when I heard him for the first time, I didn't like his kirtans. I found it a little different, and his kirtans are very different. It's not the traditional style of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He has a very different style of leading kirtans. So when I heard it first time, I didn't like it. And then somehow Krishna gave me the intelligence, he hit me on my head to go back and hear them again. And this time when I did that, I'm happy I did that again. And somehow I could connect to Indra Prabhu's Kirtans. So in 2011 April, 2nd April 2011, I went to Vrindavan. And that time when I went the first day, in fact, even before seeing Radha Shamasundar, I went to Indra Prabhu's room just to see his deities, just to see the place, because I had seen in videos in his room, he will be explaining his room. He will be explaining his deities, etc. So then that was my desire, and that was my inspiration to go to Vrindavan, to see his room, to see his deities, to see his Shaligram, uh, to understand the life of this personality who breathed the chanting of the holy name. Oftentimes, Haridas Thakur, when we talk about him, we say, well, he was 500 years back. Probably in those days it was possible, but now Kali Yuga has become so deteriorated that now it's difficult to follow that lifestyle. But I feel Indra Prabhu was a modern day Haridas Thakur, coming from America, um, having been brought up in this Catholic culture, but still chanting 64 rounds, living in the land of Vrindavan, being celibate, having 2000 Shaligram Shilas, having 36 deities in his room, cooking every day for Gaur Nitai, um, to, to not sleep at night. For 25 years, he was in Vrindavan, he would not sleep at night. Every night, he would be awake. He would sleep only in the afternoon for like 3, 4 hours. At night, 11 o'clock, he will start cooking. Very different style of scheduling he had. One time, one person asked Ayendra Prabhu, why do you start cooking at 11 at night? Why not any other time? And Ayendra Prabhu said, night time is the time when Radha and Krishna have their rasa dance. So when Radha and Krishna have the rasa dance, at one point they will stop and take rest. So when they stop and take rest, I want to be the personality who gives them something to eat, to nourish them, to give them more strength. And that's why I cook for them at night. Now, when I heard these things, I felt I've never heard this from anyone. You see this in books, but you don't find people living this life very often. And Aindrabu was someone who had a very unconventional style of living, very transcendently eccentric, and that caught my attention very fast. Uh, so he was my big time inspiration. Of course, Aindrabu was someone you can keep speaking, speaking, speaking. It's not just me. I think people around the world are inspired and transcendently mad behind him and the life that he has led. And fortunately, by his blessings and the blessings of Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, I got uh, the ultimate inspiration of my life in the form of Shri Srimad Srila Radha Govinda Das Goswami Maharaj, my worshipable spiritual master, who was kind enough to accept me as his disciple during Kartik of 2018 in the land of Sri Vrindavan Dham. So these are three prominent personalities that come to my mind. Of course, Prabhupada is there in the list, and Prabhupada is there in the list of every ISKCON devotee, needless to say. But apart from Srila Prabhupada, it has to be Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, Sripad Ayendra Prabhu up on the list, and my worshipful spiritual master, Sri Srimad Srila Radha Govinda Maharaj.
Haribol. That was very wonderful inspiration from Ayendra Prabhu, which you had got, Prabhuji. So thank you so much for sharing with us. So, Prabhuji, in your youth stage, like when you were schooling, what are the challenges you faced in the school? Like, how was it to go through your school days and your colleges? Like, you will be having all your friends around you, right? So, how they used to talk with you, they used to interact with you, and how you used to mingle with them. So,
Well, in my school also, I would wear tilak. My brother and I, we would wear tilak and we would go. So even from our first grade, we would wear tilak. So generally, I mean, uh, when people wear tilak, it's only when if it's an occasion, it's like Diwali or something like that. They will just wear like a small thing. But every single day we would wear like this. And I remember my friends in one of the grades, they would mock me. They would say in Hindi, they would say this is like an ulta pencil. Oh, you have a pencil, so this is like an ulta pencil. So my name in school was like ulta pencil. Hey, ulta pencil, because I would wear this tilak. And of course, now that it's probably more than 15, 18 years, and now it sounds hilarious, but as probably a 10-year-old, it was a little difficult to digest. I will not deny that it was difficult to digest because you have your practices on one side, at the same time you have your friends mocking. And it's very easy to give up your practice to embrace the friendship of your friends because you don't want to be ragged and mocked in your school every single day. It's very painful. But somehow the blessings and um, kripa, mercy of, I think, Sripad Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj and Krishna Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself somehow kept both brothers going. We would wear tilak, and after one point, they will stop. They tease for 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks, 1 month. But kitna chidayenge? Everyone has an end. How much will you tease that person? Everyone will stop at one point. And eventually that stopped. I remember in my third or fourth grade, there was a firefighting course in our school. So one police officer had come to teach his firefighting course, and my brother and I both were enrolled, and many students were enrolled. So on the first day when we went, we both were wearing tilak, and that police officer, this was in Maharashtra, that police officer saw and he said, "From tomorrow, don't wear this. You wear in other courses, but for my course, you should not wear." And now this was like an extracurricular thing that we had enrolled ourselves. So he said, "You should not wear tilak." So, and he was like a hefty guy. He's like a police officer. He was a hefty guy. And we were like probably what, 10, 12. So what can we say? So we just said, okay. And then we went home. And then I remember I told my parents. So the next day, my father came to school and he spoke to the principal. And he said, well, this is our practice. We are going to wear tilak. If you are not going to allow them to wear tilak, we'll change their school. But we are not going to leave our practice. And the principal was kind enough. Uh, I mean, of course, we were also good in our academics. So that was like an additional advantage because the principal said, well, these you don't want to leave a good student behind. You don't want to send your good student to some other school just because of some tilak. So the principal was kind. My father spoke to the principal. The principal was kind. He then went and spoke. She went and spoke to the police officer, who eventually agreed. So then after that, we again started wearing tilak. So parents were also pretty instrumental. Um, I don't know how many parents nowadays would venture to go to school and speak to the principal just for a tilak. You would naturally want to bend and say, well, whatever the school says, you just agree. Don't be fanatic or whatever. But I remember my father had come to school. This was third grade, 2003 or 2004. And then there was a time as grades progress, seventh, eighth, ninth, etc., we would always wear tilak. When we wouldn't wear tilak, people would say, hey, tilak kidhar gaya? Where's your tilak? Did you forget to wear tilak? So then people started to remind us. It's not that we forgot, but in 6, 7, 8 hours of school, because of sweat, sometimes the tilak would just go off. So then people would say, hey, tilak kidhar gaya? So that was motivational because now people were recognizing us as the soldiers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that was preaching in itself. You don't have to open your mouth. Srila Radhanath Swami Maharaj says, preaching is a 24-hour activity. Sometimes you have to open your mouth, which means most times you preach through your character, through your through how you carry yourself. So then people would say, "Arey, tilak kidhar gaya? Where is your tilak?" So that became a norm. And in the school also, my brother was 4 years ahead of me. He's 4 years older to me. So we would have morning shift and afternoon shifts. So when he was in the morning shift, so teachers would see him wearing the tilak. And in the afternoon shift, if that same teacher is teaching me some other subject, she would look and she would say, "Oh, are you the brother of Amarendra?" Because my brother's pre-initiated name is Arvind. So, are you Arvind's brother? And I would say yes. And I would say, "How did you get to know?" I said, Tilak. And that became the norm. Even the teachers started recognizing us as the brothers who wear Tilak. And that's preaching. So we became happy that even without opening our mouth, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is being spread inside the campus. And just because of the tilak, every boy, every girl, the principal, the vice principal, all the teachers recognized us because we were the only two who were wearing tilak. But it didn't come easy. It came with some mocking, it came with some ragging. But I just feel if you hold on and you just depend on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna says, Balam Balavatam Chaham. I give the strength. He says, if you want strength, I will give the strength. And believe me, when he gives the strength, we can overcome anything, including the ragging, including the mocking, including the criticism. In fact, even when I was doing my master's here in America, the first 1 week I didn't wear a tilak because I was not sure how the American culture is. So I just wanted to get myself familiarized with the atmosphere. And then I saw, well, in America, people don't judge you. In India, people are a little judgmental, but in America, really, people don't care. Whatever you do, what you wear, whether or not you wear anything, people don't care. The culture is so bad. So then I saw people really don't care. So then I started wearing tilak. And then there came a point when in the campus you find the youth smoking. In the campus you find the youth having beer bottles. So then I thought to myself, if they can shamelessly hold a beer bottle in their hand, why should I not have a bead bag in my hand? So then I started walking in the campus with tilak and bead bag. And really, no one would say much because they would have hot beer bottles and I would have bead bag and I would have tilak. Um, so Krishna eventually gives that strength. Krishna says, Balam Balavatam Chaham. If someone wants strength, Krishna says, I give the strength. Everyone has challenges. Prabhupada also had challenges. Our Gurudevs also have challenges. But those who try to overcome the challenge depending on Krishna are the ones who are victorious. If we give up right away, कि अरे मेरे से नहीं होगा, तो फिर नहीं होगा. But if we just stick that it is possible, let me just hold on. Mahaprabhu will give mercy. Those who prioritize Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in their lives, Mahaprabhu will prioritize them in his life. And when he prioritizes well, that's the end of material existence. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prioritizes us, it's the end of material existence. So there were challenges, but these are a few to name. There's one more that comes to my mind, and then I'll end this thing. Um, we are always told to not eat from outside. And Mumbai is a place where there's a delicacy called as vada pav, and it's very, very common. So it's nothing but it's like a burger. You have a bun and then you have aloo patty. And then most youth eventually during the break, recess break, they would go and they would eat that or they would eat something else which has onion, garlic, etc. And because we should not be having that, my mother was very kind. Every day in the afternoon, she would drive 30 minutes in her scooter. She would drive 30 minutes and she would have prepared something. So she would come and she would give it to us. And then she would also bring a flask of hot milk just because we should not eat outside. So every single day in the hot sun, she would come to make sure that prasadam is being fed to us. And she did that for many years. So I feel we will be ungrateful as brothers if we just take the credit and do not give the credit to parents. They have been very, very instrumental, whether it's our tilak or whether it's our going to the temple or mm, feeding us prasadam or whatever. And I think those small, small acts just registers in your head. And then that builds faith in the heart. And when there is faith in the heart, you want to give it out to others. Uh, so yeah, these were the challenges. These are some of the points that I can think of in my school.
So nice to hear, Prabhuji. So your journey in your youth days when you were in school. So when you were, so this was in Mumbai, you were saying. So what are the challenges you faced when you first stepped in USA? You had to be with a few non-devotees, right? So the situation is totally opposite here in USA, being hippies and everything. So drug addicts, everything. So how you managed here, sharing room with them?
I think Krishna prepares you from India itself. He gives you situations where you're mentally prepared to face the most adverse obstacles. And yeah, when I came here to New Jersey, um, initially the first 3 months were a little difficult. I was homesick. This is the first time I went away from family, parents, different country, different time zone. You have to cook on your own and so many other things, buy groceries. New Jersey snows very heavily. I don't have a car. So a lot of obstacles like that. And eventually, then I moved to a neighboring place. My roommates were Gujaratis there. Um, But still, challenges were there. I would oftentimes I would go to the nearby park. There was a nearby park where there was nice lake. So I would sit there and chant, because when I would chant in front of the roommates, they would have various questions. Even though they were Gujaratis, they would have the most weirdest questions. I remember one of my roommate had told me. So um, like when I would walk in the street and I would chant, of course it's America. It's very cold, so I would wear slippers. So he would instruct me. He would say, "Well, when you're chanting, you should not wear slippers. भगवान का नाम जब लेते हैं आपको चप्पल नहीं पहनना चाहिए." Now, well, it makes sense when you're home, but when you're outside, we wear slippers. And Mahaprabhu's mood is uthite shuite yatha tata naam le desha kala niyam nahi sarvasiddhi hoy. These rules and regulations don't matter. The tongue has to move. So these different instructions I would get from my friends, but I wouldn't venture to say much. So I would go to the nearby park. My only companions there would be a couple of ducks. Ducks would be there in the water, and that was pretty much an abandoned park. No one would come there. So a couple of ducks would be there. I would just sit there and chant, and it would be challenging for the fact that during winters New Jersey gets very cold. The whole of East Coast gets very cold. So to give an approximate idea, in winters the temperature goes to about -10, -12 Celsius. It gets very cold. But I wouldn't want to be home because the roommates would be hearing film music. They would keep playing Bollywood movies, um, and so many other things. So I wouldn't find that as a right place to even sit and chant. So I would go there. It would be cold, but I would go there. I would sit and chant my 16 rounds, and it would be very, very cold. And then I would come back. But Krishna rewards you accordingly. As I mentioned, Krishna tests everyone, and everyone has a test, including if you're Prahlad Maharaj, including if you're Bhishma Dev. The test is there for everyone. Um, but those are the challenges I remember, because I didn't have a car. In fact, I still don't have a car. But in New Jersey, when I was a student, um, the New Jersey temple was about 1 hour distance by car. And 1 hour in America is a lot because there's no traffic like India. So a 1 hour in America is almost equal to about 2 hours in India travel time. So the New Jersey temple was 1 hour, and every week I would literally beg to different devotees, "Can you just swing by and can you give me a lift? Can you just take me to the temple?" Because that's the only association I had throughout the week. I was living with non-devotees. So for one Sunday feast, I would beg to different families that, "Can you please take me?" Because I didn't want to ask the same family again and again. This was about 2017, 2018, and different devotees were kind, but at the end of the day, how not every family lives close to you. Some are very far. So for them, it's too much of a detour. So some would say yes, some would say no. Some would say this week we are not going. Some would say we have our daughter's engagement this week. Some would say we have some other thing to attend to, some family gathering or whatever. So if there's no one to pick me up, I would again be at home. Um, so even going to the local temple was difficult. Um, Cooking on your own, chanting on the street, chanting in cold winters. It was challenging, but I feel that environment made sure that dependence on Krishna is maximum. Because when Krishna puts you in a situation where there are no devotees, the only prayer that you can pray to the Lord is, "My dear Lord, please give devotees in my life." Because I was brought up in an environment where I always had devotees. I was never in an environment where there were never devotees. I mean, parents were there. We would go to the Sunday Juhu temple. We would meet Prabhupada disciples there. My first grains were also given by my first writing. The first letter that you write was done by a Prabhupada disciple who was a sannyasi, Narmada Maharaj, who was living in Juhu temple. So always around devotees and Prabhupada disciples, and then Krishna picks you up and puts you in a place where there are no devotees. Temple is far. You don't have a car, and as student, you don't have much money because you want to use it wisely for your academics. Um, so challenges like this were there, but when I went to Bhakti Center for the first time, this is the next day after I arrived in America. I looked at Radha Murlidhar and I just wrote two things. I said, "My dear Lord, I don't have devotees here. I don't know anyone here. So you make sure that there are devotees in my life." And second, I don't know to cook. I mean, I know to cook, but I'm not the best of the cooks. So you just make sure that you put me in a place where I can get prasadam constantly. And Krishna was very, very kind. He picked me up from New Jersey. 2 years of tears and suffering resulted in such that he picked me up from New Jersey and he put me in Seattle, where right now I live in and around devotees. I live very, very close to temple, which is stone's throw distance, and the area where we stay are filled with devotees. It is, we kind of joke around. It's ito devotee, parato devotee. We have devotees everywhere. Near the temple, we have about 200 families who stay. And it's a very, very big congregation. As I mentioned in the past, I had not heard about Seattle, so, but somehow hearing this prayer, Krishna picked me up from there and put me here. So my devotee association was granted. And second, I wanted prasadam. And Seattle is the only temple in North America that has prasadam 24 hours. So
Mhm.
Krishna arranges in a way. He listens to our prayers. He says, Yoga Kshema Mahamyam. He says, I give you what you lack and I preserve what you have. And I mean, at least from my little experience, I can say Krishna is listening to our prayers. It might take time to fructify, but when it fructifies, it will remind us of the prayers that we prayed probably 5, 10 years in the past. Krishna will eventually give it. जैसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं भगवान के घर देर है अंधेर नहीं है. It will take time, but he will fulfill the desire of his devotees. And if they're spiritual, definitely Krishna will fulfill. So it was difficult in New Jersey living with non-devotees, but no complaints. I think those hard days and those days filled with tears fructified in a way wherein I came to Seattle, and eventually from Seattle my preaching began. So Krishna has his own way. If not for the struggle in New Jersey, probably I would have not felt for the youth that well they should also be chanting and hearing. So Krishna puts you in situations on purpose so that it gives realization in the heart, so that you can do good to others. Janma sartaka kari kara paropakar. First do good to yourself, then help others.
Very nice, Prabhuji. I want so to hear your journey in this Krishna consciousness. So, what brought you to Bhakti Sangha, Prabhuji? Our Bhakti
What?
Sangha. How you got
Good
connected to
question.
our?
How I got connected to Bhakti Sangha? Well, my brother was speaking in Bhakti Sangha. His Grace Adi Gadadhar Prabhu would speak in Bhakti Sangha. I remember Adi Gadadhar Prabhu had asked me when I was in Atlanta, he asked me, will you speak? He said, I can ask Preeti Vilasini Mataji if you want to speak. And I said, well, no, there are so many devotees there and I have never given a class like that. So I'm afraid I don't want to. He said, no, no, ho jayega. He said, no, Prabhu. So then he didn't force me. And then it was February of 2021. Kirtida Sundari Mataji reached out to my brother. It was Shivaratri. And she reached out to my brother as to if he could give the Shivaratri class. But he was already scheduled somewhere else. So he said, I cannot because I'm already scheduled somewhere. Then Kirtida Mataji asked, can your brother serve? So he said, well, this is my brother's number. You can ask him himself. So then Kirtida Mataji reached out to me. This was March of 2021 or maybe February of 2021. And I was also scheduled to give a class in Seattle. Of course, it was a home program, home gathering, but I was also scheduled. So I said, Mataji, I am also scheduled here, so I will not be able to give. So she said, okay. And then within a month, 8th of April 2021 was the appearance day of Ayendra Prabhu. So I said, well, if I have to start my journey at Bhakti Sangha, it has to be with the appearance of Ayendra Prabhu. The personality who inspired me the most, why not I speak about him? So 8th of April 2021, that's when I told Kirtaya Mataji that you had reached out to me earlier. That time I couldn't. But I see this day. And Bhakti Sangha never in the history has ever given a day for glorification of Ayendra Prabhu. So I thought, why not start that? So 8th April 2021 was when I gave a 2.5 hour class. My first class was a 2.5 hour class on the glories of Sripad Ayendra Prabhu. Um, and yeah, that's how journey began. After since then, Sripad Ayendra Prabhu's class and Chaitanya Charitamrita classes and Chaitanya Bhagavat. Recently, teachings of Lord Chaitanya was there. So and devotees have been crying in the form of Preeti Vilasini Mataji and Kirtaya Sundari Mataji and others who are there, including yourself, to consider me and bring me to this platform so that I can speak some words. in appreciation of Shastra and also purify myself. So yes, 8th April 2021 was when the journey began.
Haribo, that is a wonderful journey, Prabhuji. All glories to Preeti Vilasini Mataji and Kirtida Sundari Mataji and all coordinators of Bhakti Sanga Japa for giving you to us, actually. So, very nice classes we are hearing from you both, our duo brothers, Amrita Prabhu and Arjun Sakha Prabhu. So, we are really very fortunate to have you with us. And yeah, and if you want to tell some suggestion for Bhakti Sangha, what will you say, Prabhuji, for any improvisation we have to make?
There is absolutely nothing. I cannot think of any improvisation. I do not have any suggestion as such. I think this itself what has been done, inviting so many speakers now from around the world. It started off small, but now I'm seeing in the morning Bhagavatam class also we have like some Amog Leela Prabhu and so many big speakers are coming there. Um, and we have even Prabhupada disciples like Isola Chandramauli Maharaj and so many others who are coming. So we are getting the whole world at one place, and every single day, so many devotees are hearing Bhagavatam by the kind arrangement of all of you all. Every day they're hearing Chaitanya Bhagavat. They finished Chaitanya Charitamrita. They finished teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Bhagavat is also Madhya Khanda is going on, which also probably another 1 year will be done. I am waiting to see what the next book is. But absolutely, I mean, there's nothing I can think of. May this be the start of many wonderful things, and may many more new speakers emerge from this platform. May this be the platform which gives um, the space and the mindset to launch many more speakers who can preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And may we have more and more books of Prabhupada and our predecessor acharyas that are discussed in the form of Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, etc. All glories to the service of all the devotees who are there managing this Bhakti Sangha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for keeping on inspiring us. And yes, as you said, we should also have more glories about Ayendra Prabhu from you. So I remember I saw your class on Bhakti Sangha, which we had given first time, and I think it was Amarendra Prabhuji's class, and Q&A session was going on, and at last it was getting close to 6 p.m. To UAE time, which wherein the other class will start. So Prabhuji told, no, now there is one more class which will be given by you. So that's how the devotees, they did not log out, they just stayed there, and we all logged into your class also that time.
So
So it was very
both brothers made you all wait for a very long time.
no, Prabhuji, not like that. We actually relish all your classes. So you're you both are doing such a great service to all over the world. So we just want your association every time, and we need your prayers also for all of us to come improvise our Krishna consciousness. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving us your valuable time and association for this interview. And it was very grateful to have you on the call and relish your journey in Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for considering me. And thank you once again to you and all the devotees at Bhakti Sangha. My very humble obeisances. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha upasindobhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.